wanted to share a story with you that truly touched my heart, and I think it could speak to all of us. When something happens to us and it's really not in our life's script, Hashem, our God, did not get the email that we had sent on how our life is supposed to go. What are we supposed to expect and experience? And a turn of events occur that you just have not expected. All the odds are not in your favor, and we're wondering how to approach this. Why is this happening to me? Good things should happen to good people. And why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. I try to do the right thing. Or how do I come out of this? And everything looks so bleak. And all the situations that you have maneuvered in your head and how to come out of this, you just have no way of coming out of it. And all of a sudden, towards the end, everything actually comes together and this problem is solved. This story is called Double Defense, written by Rabbi Tzvi Nakar in his book 102 Stories That Changed People's Lives. There was a family in Bnei Barak, a very ordinary family. Their last name was Shapiro, the Shapiro family. And Rabbi Yaakov and his wife, Rivka, lived a very ordinary life. And he learned in Kollel. And Rivka had a support group, a play group to help support the family. When time came, their son, Baruch and Devorah, got married within just a few months of each other. And as you can understand, it was a burden on the family on how to pay for the wedding. They were not a rich family, but thank God they were able to pull through and make it happen. And their children did not live so close to them, but they married very happily to families who were very religious as well. Also not so rich families, their in-laws. And soon after 2 years or so, both the son and the daughter had children, young children within the next 2 years. However, soon after, Rabbi Yaakov became sick, and lots of different aches and pains were felt in his body. They went through a slew of tests, and after comprehensive medical tests, he discovered with the doctors indicated that he had stage 4 cancer. Now, as you know, stage 4 cancer is really very serious, and most of the time it's uncurable, untreatable. It just miraculously only probably people actually come out of it or have a life that's prolonged. The lives of the Shapiro family turned upside down overnight. And it was really a heavy burden on Rivka, his wife, because she really felt uncomfortable asking her children for help. They had young, small children. They didn't live close by. And most of the times, she was at the bedside of her husband, praying for him, chapter after chapter of Tehillim, of Psalms. And Rabbi Yaakov had to go through a grueling series of treatments. Their kids helped as much as they could, but the majority fell on Rivka. Rivka also felt that there were a lack of volunteers in the hospital who could help out and stay with her husband. And she made Hashem, God, a promise. She said, God willing, when Yaakov recovers, I'm going to volunteer with a Bikur Holim organization. And Bli Neder, I will never, ever refuse a request to remain overnight with a patient. Yet, despite the endless efforts and Kabbalah's undertaken, the sacrifices, the mitzvot undertaken, Rabbi Yaakov passed away after a few months, cleansed from his suffering. Remembering her promise, Rivka decided she would fulfill the pledge as a zechut for her husband's neshama, so her husband's neshama can merit from the mitzvot that she does. She decided to take upon this promise. Soon after, Rivka began volunteering for a local Bikur Holim organization where volunteers take care of the sick um, instead of their families. And so she began to spend frequent nights at bedsides of elderly parents or of children whose parents just really couldn't stay every single night with their children. They were torn between their own families at home and with their sick child in the hospital. So she would volunteer very frequently. One day, after coming home from volunteering, she was so exhausted as she picked up the mail. And she was shocked to see an official looking letter from the law office of ZM. Just then, her best friend Bracha called, and she noticed her voice was off. And she said, "Are you okay? You sound very off, very worried." And she said, "I just received a letter in the mail from a law office, and it says that I'm being sued by Nadrina Motgalerdo, who supposedly said she worked for me for 10 years, and after giving birth to her son, she was fired without compensation, and she's suing me for 29,000 shekels." So that's about probably $8,000. This was obviously a fraudulent situation. She was being sued and scammed. Her friend knew she never hired someone with that name, and it sounded like a migrant, somebody who came from out of the country. Baruch, her son, was horrified at the scam his mother was blamed for, and he decided to ask a legal advisor to ask advice. And after the legal advisor did some research, he said, "Wow, I have never seen such a scam. It's cooked up really well, and actually the lawyer on the other side is known to be very evil and devious. So he probably really cooked up some horrible facts that he could have proved, but he really made it look like it's true, and it isn't." So Rivka's days were filled and plagued with worries and fears. Her children said they wanted to accompany her on the day of the hearing, but she said, "The person who's going to accompany me is the Dayan Almanos, Hashem. I'm coming with him and he's coming with me. And Emes, which is truth, will accompany me as well. And my friend Bracha Levi is coming." And the Askan said, the legal advisor said, he'll send someone too. "I don't know how helpful they'll be, but I can't afford a proper lawyer. But I believe that Hashem, the Dayan Almanos, will judge me favorably. He knows I'm innocent, and he will cause the truth to come to light." On Tuesday afternoon, as Rivka was reading countless chapters of Tehillim and she was praying, the phone rang. It was the Bikur Holim organization, and they asked if she was available to spend the night at Tel Aviv in Israel with a sick infant whose parents had been switching every single night for 4 weeks, and they just couldn't anymore, and they really needed help. Her heart sank for this family, and she knew she made a promise that no matter who called, whenever, she's going to keep her promise no matter what. But volunteering was the last thing on her mind. A night spent on the bedside of an infant meant a sleepless night. She said she said to herself she needed to be most alert the following morning during the hearing. She was about to apologize and say she had a critical meeting that morning, but then she remembered her promise and she said to herself, "I have no idea what is going to happen tomorrow at the hearing anyway. It is all in the hands of Hashem in any case. What's the difference how tired or alert I am? Besides, the courthouse is only a short walk from the hospital, so I can just go straight there afterwards, and who knows, maybe it'll be a merit for me." So she told the secretary, "You can count on me." And at 9 p.m., Rivka arrived to see the harried mother thank her profusely for coming. And she said, "Tonight is my niece's wedding, and I have to show my face." She gave her the instructions for the 1-year-old Fega, the baby, who was at the hospital. She said, gave her all the instructions, and she said she doesn't like to be in the crib. And she quickly ran away to the wedding. It was a hard night for both of them. The baby was sleepless, and obviously it wasn't such a restful time for Rivka, not even at the armchair. Finally, at 5 a.m., the baby fell asleep. At around 7:30 a.m., as Rivka was reciting Tehillim fervently, even though she was tired, her droopy eyes, and exhausted. At 7:30 a.m., a woman in her 70s arrived, came into the room with a young man who seemed like he was her son. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Gittel Schuster," which is a fake name, but it's a real person. Faggy's grandmother. "It was so kind of you to spend the night here. We had a family wedding, and it was so important for all of us to be there. We really have no words to thank you." And she was so incredibly, profusely grateful for her help. And she said, "Right now, my son can actually drive you back home, back to Bnei Brak, and anywhere else you need to go. Please just tell him." And she said, "No, don't worry. I need to walk. I need to go now. I need to go to a courthouse this morning." And they said, "Someone like you has a hearing today? What could you have possibly done wrong?" And they said to themselves, "Listen, this is someone who had such a big heart, who's helping us with the baby, made time for this, and she has a hearing the next morning." And what happened was Rivka ended up telling Mrs. Gittel and her son the whole story. And they were just shocked. Her son said, "Listen, I'm going to drive both of you there. We're all going. I'm going to pretend to be the other lawyer. And since this woman it's a fraudulent case, she doesn't even know who you are. Just listen to me and just trust me. I'm going to have my mother come in first, Mrs. Gittel, and then you, Mrs. Rivka, are going to come in about 3 minutes later. And we're going to do our best shot on this case. Just trust me." So they quickly rushed to the hearing. He introduces himself as the lawyer supporting Mrs. Rivka. And in comes first Mrs. Gittel, his mother. Now he introduces her as Mrs. Rivka. And as soon as she comes in, the woman, Mrs. Nadrina, who has created this case against her, quickly points her finger at her. "Listen, she's the one. She's the one." She said it in an accent. "She's the one who didn't pay me for 10 years. She's this evil woman. She's the one who put me through all this." And when he was introducing her, I apologize, he didn't say Rivka lady. He said he just had her come in and to sit next to him. But 3 minutes later, the real Rivka comes in, and the judge says, "You don't even know the employer. You don't even know what they look like." And it was easy to see that this was definitely a fraudulent case. This was a case where it was cooked up really well by this devious lawyer. But in such a simple way, Rivka won the case. It wasn't even expected. It wasn't even planned for. Hashem has many ways. When you're doing the right thing, Hashem will help you. Hashem does not want you to be devastated, to fail. He doesn't clap his hands when you finally fall, when you have a challenge and you don't know how to come out of it. He's rooting for you. He's asking you to turn to him. And that's what Rivka did. She turned to Hashem. She said, "I have nobody but you. My husband's not here. My children are far away. I can't afford a proper lawyer. You know what? I made myself a promise to be there at the Bikur Halim organization to volunteer. I'll be there. I'm going to have my chapters of Tehillim. I have you, my prayers. What can I do? You run the world. Hashem ultimately runs the world. But sometimes we forget. We think we're in control of it. We think we're in control of everything in our lives. And ultimately, it's really only Him. And it's our job to turn to Him and ask Him for help and ask Him to help us come out of the situation that He put us in for our ultimate benefit. We don't see why things happen. We know that it's for our ultimate benefit in the end. And I hope this story had given us chizuk, had given us strength. And Rivka said, after all of this happened, she said, wow, Hashem really gave me a defense team in my favor. I'm so grateful. And just know that within any minute, at any time, in any way, a salvation can come your way. Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming, awakening awareness of your greatness and potential.